So just to start off with a really, really brief introduction on what this is all about. All of this started out with this movement called Smart Nation. And the idea of Smart Nation is not so much to like come up with glitzy technology and projects just for the sake of it, but at the heart of it, it's about making a difference in people's lives. It's about solving problems that exist in our society, and using the work that you do to really make that impact. Yeah, so this is today's program, really briefly. So quick introduction, we'll have a panel discussion for about 40 minutes, followed by a networking session for all of the folks who are here today. We have many agencies who are here. Later on, you can look behind and see all the different agencies who have representatives here today who are hiring for UX designers or similar roles, and you can feel free to talk to them. For the folks online, we also have agency representatives who will be at the online Q&A, and you can ask them any questions as well. Yeah. Okay, so what exactly does the government do? What does it work on? And why are we here today? In short, there are three things that Smart Nation looks at. It looks at building a good digital economy, so creating jobs and opportunities. It looks at building good digital services. So all of the things that you use on a daily basis, be it apps like SingPass or Scam Shield, or even FormSG, all of this requires good design. And we try to make the services as like user-friendly and as citizen-centric as possible. And third, all of this is to also build a good digital society, so to make lives more convenient for everyone. So one of the things that we noticed, this is a quote from, I think, our director, is that we have so many talented people across different sectors, but they are working on tech and they're working on things like shopping and entertainment. And it's not a judgment per se, but we also need people to be solving the biggest problems in our society today, all the things that we face on a daily basis, public housing, education, healthcare. And if you join the public service, these are issues that you could be working on on a day-to-day basis, the kinds of lives that you could be changing. And if you're thinking, so some of you here might not be Singaporean, you might, maybe you haven't worked in Singapore for a long time, and you might be thinking, Singapore is so small, like what is the kind of impact that I can make in Singapore? And can the impact be scaled? So we want to reassure you that yes, that is the case. In Singapore, we try to see ourselves as a very small, tiny dot, but a country that tries to punch above its weight. We have collaborations with many other countries that have come through our doors, spoken to many of the agencies here today, as well as to GovTech, to OGP, and agencies that and governments and countries that are interested in seeing what Singapore is doing. Very recently, we hosted a large delegation from, say, Malaysia that is also trying to implement a very similar app to parking.sg in their own country. And that's the kind of global impact that we hope to scale as well, not just in Singapore, but looking at the impact that we can make across the world. So why are you here today? You might be interested in knowing that we are hiring across the public sector. We have many agencies, more than 60 agencies that have put out roles in the tech-related roles across the entire public service. We're actually hiring for more than 700 roles over the next 3 months. We are very, very excited about this, and we really hope to bring in the best talent in Singapore and across the world to be working in the public service and solving public good problems. Okay, and that's really it for my introduction. So I'll hand over the time to Ben, who is our product design manager from OGP. Ben is, yes, extremely experienced as a designer, and we have a panel of 5 very exciting and experienced and distinguished designers from all across the government, and we look forward to hearing from them.
Cool, thank you, Steph. Yeah, thank you. Cool. I'll invite our panelists up too at this point in time. Yeah, you guys want to come up? All right.
Seating order to me, like 1 to 3.5 or
You can just have a seat. We got enough chairs? Okay, we need one more. He's here. I'll just stand as a panelist, that way I can pass the mic around, okay? Or as the moderator. Cool. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, let's do something fun, ready? Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. All right. It's not even so sharp. Love it. I'm Ben Bose. I'm the product design manager here at OGP. I'm really responsible for making sure that the design team at OGP has everything that they need to do the best work. And so a lot of times that means just kind of listening, providing coaching, understand where people are at, where they want to go, what problems they're facing, and how we get there. So tonight I have the pleasure of being the moderator for the panel. Got a handful of questions that I'll pose to everyone here, and then if you don't hear one of the questions that you want to answer to, you can always reach out to any of these folks after the panel during the networking portion for more information. So we'll get started with some introductions. I'm going to challenge all of our panelists to provide their name, role, organization, what you're currently working on, and then one fun fact about yourself. Yeah. So a fun fact about me, I brew my own kombucha. Yeah. So there you go. So how about we start with Judy?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm Judy from HDB. So currently, we have a UXD team, and I'm the UX team leader. So I lead a team of like 8 members, making up of like researchers, designers, and front-end developers. Yeah. So we work on various projects like internal projects, customers-facing projects. We maintain the design system. Yeah, I see the whole design system. Yeah, that's the foundation of everything for a designer. Yeah, and you see all the digital services that we have at HDB. Yeah, we are in charge of it to maintain a consistency, keeping it modern, updated, and so on. So fun fact of myself is that I really love Hello Kitty. So you can see my bottle over here. Yeah, so in my like office desk, I have a lot of Hello Kitty plushies and so. And when I go to Japan, I'll go to like every town and city to look for all the Hello Kitty merchandise. Yeah, so any Hello Kitty fans here that we can like link up together? No? Okay, all right, next person.
So hi, I'm Jing, product designer here at OGP. So if you know OGP, you know that we work on like various products. So for me, actually, I work in the health tech space. So health tech is kind of like a sandbox within OGP whereby we are a bit more experimental. So we try out like different projects and whatnot. So if you're a designer in the health tech space, means that you touch all of the projects that's within the health tech space. So one of my current projects is that I'm working with the medical social workers to do like their case management system. So that's kind of like my core product. What else? Fun fact? Fun fact about myself. I picked up skateboarding recently.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elaine from EDB. So I'm a product designer with our product innovation by experience team. I also happen to lead the product design practice for our team. Fun fact about me first, just came back from Nepal with my 1-year-old daughter. I think it was a reckless decision on hindsight, but I'm very glad we're all back alive and breathing. Yeah, I also picked up skateboarding not so recently ago. Yeah. In terms of what I do, a big part of like the role of product designers in EDB is working on various digital systems within EDB. So these are either front-end facing systems for corporate clients or internal systems that support EDB officers to complete certain workflows in support of various organization goals. Another big effort that my team is currently working on is looking at how can we support the development of non-financial products for EDB. Because actually, if you know about EDB as an organization, a lot of our core products and services are like tax and financial incentives, but actually we're really trying to pivot and look into the space of actually how else can we transact and provide an experience for our corporate clients that really doesn't afford monetary incentives. So how can you better help them navigate the Singapore government system? How can you better help them to connect either with different parts of the government service or with other business investors without having to interface with an EDB account manager? So that's a little bit about our team.
Hi everyone, I'm Suanne. I'm currently project lead of a project. It's a lean team of 3 of us, and we are working with MOH and PSD. It's called Early Bird, but basically what it is if you've heard of living wills in Singapore, there's something called an advanced care plan. And we're looking at the next 5 years of the advanced care plan. How do we get Singaporeans, especially our aging population, to think about the kind of end-of-life care they would want and how someone else might represent them in the case that they cannot make medical decisions for themselves. So that's what I'm working on. I'm with GovTech. And a fun fact about me is that I'm cat sitting for the first time this week. So if anyone has tips, it's like my friend's cat is lovely, but she's not like the most predictable. So I would relish any cat-centered design tips. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see so many people out this evening. My name is Premika. I'm lead UX designer with GovTech. I'm seconded to the Ministry of Manpower, and we have 4 products. The largest product is something we call WINS, which is the Workplace Integrated System, which handles the work passes and employment passes. Then we have My Careers Future, a career coach, and a fintech product called My Money Centers. It would take too long for me to explain all the products to you, so I'm just going to move on to the fun fact. I try a new sport every year. So last year it was skiing. This year it was ice skating, and I fractured. Is that going to stop me from trying out a new sport? Maybe I'll try a few board games for the next couple of months. See how it goes after that.
Right, thank you all. Yeah, Premika, it seems like we have a lot of skateboarders here, so you can give that a chance next time. Yeah,
Yeah, I've got my other hand.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we all know, like, as designers, there's a lot of opportunities for us out there in the world, right? You can work at startups, fintechs, Googles, Amazons, like all these different places. And I won't have a chance to like ask these questions of every panelist, so you can follow up with some of them. But why did you choose to work in public service as opposed to some of those other things? Yeah, maybe we start with Judy.
Okay, it's me again. So I've been in the public sector for like 10 years already. Yeah, see, makes you look young. Before joining the public sector, right, I was in a SME for 1 year. Then basically the company closed down, owe me money, couldn't pay for my salary. So at that time I was thinking that, I need a better career, something that is more stable. So that's why I joined the public sector. And I didn't regret this choice because joining the public sector, I think you do hear from many of us, we share that, we touch the life of the citizens, like everyone in Singapore, especially in HDB, right? Many of you would think that, HDB just built flats, yeah, but actually we do a lot more than that. Yeah, we also deal with like, people who do parking, we deal with the commercial tenants, a lot of the contractors, renovation, all walks of life. So some part of your life, right, you will deal with us. Yeah, and as a UX designer in HDB, we really reach out to the citizens. We talk to them, understand their pain points, and try to solve real problems that is happening out there. Yeah, so I didn't regret, and that's how I started, and I didn't regret it. Even 10 years, I haven't thought of like retiring in HDB, bringing my kids next time to the childcare. We have a childcare there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so next person.
Let's go to Elaine.
Oh, okay. The question is, why do we join the public sector, right? So this is a funny story. So quite some years ago, when I was in university, like I studied economic geography for my degree. Like, don't ask me how I apply as a designer, I don't. But I was studying overseas, looking at like how economic policies differ across like countries and economies. And being an overseas student and being the only Singaporean in my course, I was often called on during my class to say like, oh, actually, could you speak a little bit about what the economic situation is like in Singapore? How's your lived experience as a Singaporean? And like, how can you contribute to this very academic theory about how, like how some cities like develop differently and so on and so forth. And it was really true, like my 3 years in undergrad, being called on as the token Singaporean to answer how Singapore is always the exception to any like economic theory or policy. And then that was what developed my appreciation for actually the work that like the Singapore government, and I think specifically EDB, did to kind of make sure that our economy was so successful. So I think that was like how my path into the public sector got started. Like I got to see an outside-in perspective of how actually like other countries view like the success of Singapore's decision making of policy building. And then I think that was what really inspired me to join EDB as my first job, and I've been there ever since.
Okay, to be honest, I didn't choose the public sector chose me. So when I've only been in the job for maybe less than 3 years. And I had a couple of options or opportunities aside from this one. And I think there were two things. One is the people. So the people that I talked to and the people that I interviewed with really helped me make my decision about my choice to move forward. And then the second thing was, at that time, I started thinking a lot about purpose as well. Because in the private sector, it's very revenue driven. Yeah, they have purpose. Every startup has purpose. Every agency has purpose, but it's not their main focus. Like they have to be revenue driven as well as purpose driven. And I find that the public sector gives you a chance to really evaluate what's my purpose, what do I stand for, what are my values, what impact do I want to start having with the work that I do.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing. I'll jump out to our next question here. And maybe we'll get into the dirt. Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge? Yeah. It's my favorite topic. I love challenges. So what's the biggest challenge that you faced as a designer in public service, and how have you addressed it? Yeah. And I know Jing and Suanne have both faced lots of challenges in public service. So I'm gonna have them answer this. Yeah.
Okay, I guess it starts with me. Okay, so I think previously, before I joined the public sector, I was actually from the fintech space. And I think a lot of times being in the fintech space is something that all designers want to be in because it's sexy and whatnot, right? But I think after a while, you begin to realize that actually, precisely because it's profit driven. So all your KPIs and whatnot is as long as you earn money for the company and it doesn't break any law, it's fine. But I think being in the government sector, because you are thinking a lot for people and things like that, right? So there's a lot of processes. And sometimes when you're scoping a project, you realize there's a lot of cumbersome processes that the worker has to take in order for them to do their job. But then I think one thing we realized, for example, the project I'm working on, is that some processes don't make sense. But at the same time, when you really dwell back into understanding why this process was set in place, you realize that actually it came from a very good intention, just that it didn't work out operationally. So I think that's the biggest challenge that I face working in the public sector, is that all these processes that was put in place, it was out of a good intention, but maybe just didn't work out operationally. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I face. But how do I think the good thing about working in OGP is that as a designer on a team, so we try as much as possible to work with the policy team. So we have a policy team in OGP, and then what we can do is that we can approach them and they will be able to help us table up any issues that we have to the ministries or basically to senior management. So I think that was actually very helpful. So one of the projects that I was working on, we actually managed to do that. So through the user interviews and research and whatnot, right? We managed to realize that actually some of the processes don't make sense. So how can we solve it, right? And a lot of times it's not visibility. So it's not you can fix it with your screens and things like that. But you need I guess working with the policy team to fix things like that. So I think that's what we did. So it was a success. And I think after that, when I tested out with the users and whatnot, the feedback was good. They were okay, thanks for saving my life. I managed to skip a few steps just to deliver, just to do my job. So yeah, I would think that that's one of the bigger challenges for me.
Test. Oh, okay. Okay. Biggest challenge for me working in the public sector, I think when you care a lot about what you do, like Premika was saying, it's meaningful work. It can be painful to have to carry that knowledge to stakeholders who have their own pain. So if I know that the citizens or the users that I'm working with have certain needs, if it was just me, I could just try and design something and to implement it. But there are existing systems and there are people with their own processes and ways of doing things who get affected. So I have to think from the lens of how do I slowly introduce this change and stage it in such a way that everyone is on board, everyone starts to understand, and everyone kind of co-owns it and we do it together. So being able to do that with others and not just to try to do it just from my perspective, being able to bring the idea and to slowly socialize it and gently bring it to different people and being able to listen to the different stakeholders and, like Jing said, where they are coming from, the very real good intentions that they have, and being able to say yes and to all of those. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, because it really takes a lot of patience, and sometimes it's quite unbearable when you feel like, oh, I see all these challenges and I can't fix them all at once. Yeah, so being able to have that patience, that's what I would say is the challenge.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that I loved about the answers is just how they're really focused on like change and changing like the way things are done today, and all to make things a bit better. And that's one of the things I love about being designers, that we're kind of like change makers in a way, and the people who can help push for what we believe is right. And if there's one thing I learned, is like change can be a very slow, painful process. And so sometimes we have an uphill battle, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. The next question I have is maybe on the flip side of this, is maybe what's the coolest or most rewarding thing that you've gotten to work on as a designer in the public sector? And maybe I'll hop over to you, Judy, first.
Oh, I think it applies for many of us, is that when our work, right, gets rolled out and we see the actual users using it, you know, we solve their pain points. And recently we had a workshop with our it was a workshop and focus group where we get, you know, customers in to, you know, help us test some of our new digital services. So one of the feedback that we received was that, yeah, your website is awesome, because, right, I just come to the website, I do what I want, and I just leave. Yeah, I don't need to figure out, you know, how to get around things, you know, call the hotline and so on. So all this feedback, right, really makes us very happy, because it means that, you know, we have achieved what we are out to do for, to, you know, create a seamless experience, you know, do good in service delivery and so on. Yeah, so that's the greatest achievement I feel. Yeah, and impacting that, you know, 85% of the Singapore citizens staying in public housing. Yeah, that is how far we can reach out to. Thanks.
What was the question? What's the coolest thing that we worked on?
What's the coolest and most rewarding?
Okay, so I won't talk about the products, right? So for me, the coolest and most rewarding thing is being in user experience, in an agency or in the Ministry of Manpower. You sort of get obsessed with people, right? And then you get obsessed with, you're not obsessed with the product alone or the citizens alone. You get obsessed with, what are the people in your team experiencing? What are the stakeholders that you work with experience? What do the product owners experience? What do the developers and their teams experience? So then that becomes really rewarding if you try and link up everybody's experience and try and raise UX. So for me, the most rewarding thing is raising the level of UX awareness as well as credibility in the Ministry of Manpower, as well as amongst all the teams that I work with.
Can we go with Suanne?
The best thing. The best thing about working in coolest thing. Okay.
This question.
What's rewarding?
No, what's really cool was when I was working on SingPass last year, just getting to get scolded by uncles for all the things you're doing wrong. I mean, it feels kind of healthy in a very warped, twisted Asian way. You know, like the uncle's like, hey, why y'all do this? Yeah, please, I tell you. And you're like, oh, okay. Yes, thank you, uncle. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it made the work very real. That this is who I want to serve with my product. And if they are comfortable enough to be candid with me, then it's a powerful dialogue that I'm facilitating between the government and the citizen. Yeah. So I mean, I love that. I mean, it's super fun. Research is super fun when you get to work with citizens. Yeah, it really goes right to the heart of the meaning, you know. Like, why do we do what we do? We do it because these are the people we want to know, and we want to know what they need, and we want to help the government understand what they need. Yeah, and I think that's meaningful.
Awesome. Maybe we can take one more. Elaine, do you want to share?
Oh. Okay. So I think the coolest experience that I had as a designer so far was last year. So this event never actually made it to fruition. But last year, if you all remember, you all read from the news, like Singapore was going to organize and actually hold the WEF, the World Economic Forum in Singapore. Yeah, so that was supposed to be the first event that Singapore was going to have to host like international audiences. So and as you can imagine, backstage, everyone was scrambling. Almost every government agency that was touching this was really scrambling to make this happen. And actually, our design team got pulled in because I think people at the top, they were looking at like, I see all the good work that all these government agencies are all very dutifully doing. Like the security was taking care about security to make sure that Singapore is safe. You know, if like global politicians fly in, to global CEOs fly in, the experience is taken care of. There was also a lot of work streams to make sure that this event is safe from a public health perspective. But then someone like actually pointed out and looked at the whole problem and was like, actually, this is going to be such a high signature event. You're going to have like global leaders, you're going to have CEOs come in, and actually what if the event is not a great one? And understandably, like the event nobody was really thinking about the experience because everybody is so like focused on trying to optimize for the specific goal, be it health, security, logistics, catering that they had. So they actually called in our design team to say, can you please come in to take a look at what is the delegate experience going to be like? If this is the first time global people are coming into Singapore, let's make sure it's a good one. And we don't have like such a big stage set up only for us to kind of like, not do so well, not present our best foot because people were frustrated with having to do like daily like COVID test before they enter the conference hall. Yeah, so I think for me that was like a really, really eye-opening experience because it was the first time that for me as a design team, I got to work with a very large system and organizing an event that actually our everyday everyday human person mind cannot experience because we were talking about scenarios where, okay, if Biden flies in, he's going to land in airport so and so. Actually, what should be the steps like? Then as the designer, I'm like, and then you can't do research because you can't be like, oh, let's go and interview some like global CEO and talk about his experience like attending WEF in Davos. I was like, no such person exists. So I think it was a project that really helped me to see the breadth of systems, but also help us really challenge me personally as a designer to think from the perspective of a person who's not yet experienced something like this before. Yeah, so I thought that was like a really like huge learning experience, and I feel like this is one of those experiences that you could really only have if you work for a public sector and you really try to pull together a whole government event.
So that's great. Steph, how are we doing on time? Yeah. All right, awesome. I can get into my bonus questions then. Yeah. Well, before we get into some of the bonus questions, maybe one of the reasons that a lot of people came here today was finding about like new opportunities in government. And so maybe we could just go down the row and share a little bit about like what roles are your teams hiring for, and like what do you look for in designers during the interview process? Yeah.
Starting from me again. It's okay that I can start. So just now I shared because I'm the UXD team leader. So inside my team, right, there are basically the researchers, designers, and the front-end development. So traditionally we understand that many of the UX designers, right, focus on research and design, but not so much on the front-end development. But in recent years, we realized the importance of knowing, coding, because you need to design something that is feasible. Yeah, so knowing that, right, will help you make better decisions in your designs and will explain to the stakeholders, the product owners, to the tech team, it will work, better as the whole product team. So in terms of the roles, just like I mentioned, these are the 3 areas we're looking at. And over here, we are like multidisciplinary. We will train up our staff to be good in these areas. And of course, not just HEB, I think the whole government will provide very good like training packages. Yeah. So you work and learn at the same time. Then of course, there's a lot of opportunities, as I mentioned, in HEB, where we deal with such a diverse group of users out there. So you picked up not just about the UX knowledge, you also picked up about the domain knowledge across all. Yeah. So what to look out for in an interview?
something different. Yeah, something that makes you stand out from the usual, just sharing with us your projects. So we need to know what makes you different. Yeah, what is the value that you bring in the project? Yeah, so I think yes, it's what all of us look for. Yeah, because I believe all of you also really like for the articles, there is a lot of UX designers out there. Yeah, so you have to fight your way. Yeah, sadly lah. Yeah, so just a word of advice: think of what value you can bring to the organization, yeah, and to yourself also. So don't just like come in and share that I do this project. Then after that, nope, I just stop there. During night time, I just Netflix and sleep. Yeah. So people with initiation is also initiative is also something that will help. Yeah. Just some word of advice for all of you out there. Yeah. Based on experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think for OGP, like right now, we're at this stage where we are hiring more like senior and lead roles. We're also hiring like product design managers. But I think the purpose behind that is because we always believe in like mentorship. So only if like the top like management or like the senior people are stronger, then you can start mentoring and accommodate more like juniors. So that's where we are at currently in terms of like who are we hiring and things like that. And for things that we are looking out for in a designer, I think for all of us who are designers here at OGP, we're actually end-to-end designers. So we don't really have like a niche space, not like UX researchers, or we have one UX writer, but that's about it. But the rest of us, like just end-to-end, we need like people with like core product skills. And in terms of like interview, what we actually look out for, I think it's not just in design, but I think in every function, we follow this like structure, which you can find on our website as well. It's called AICB, which is like abilities, initiative, communication, and values. So just to share a bit more, like abilities is like really your core product design skills. So whether you can do like UX, UI, and things like that. So your visual skills. Then for communication, I guess because OGP is a little bit different, like we try to propagate a lot of what we do, not just internally but externally as well. So your communication has to be of a certain standard lah. Like you need to be able to like speak to stakeholders and people in general, right? Then the other thing is also like initiative. So I think for OGP, a lot of like the designers are actually tied to like a single project. So every project has like one designer, so which means that you really need to drive things. So that's why we really look out for people with a lot of initiative. So people that like if you have startup experience, great, right? Because then that means that you are usually the only designer there. So initiative is one, what's the some values? Yeah, I think it's what she's spoken about earlier. I think the biggest difference, like when you want to work in public sector, is that it's the meaning that drives everything, right? Because you can be in anywhere else. So why like the public sector? So we look for people who really want to build like tech for public good. A bit cheesy, but yeah, that's our tagline, right? Yeah. So I think like you are looking for a meaningful job now, and we will ask you like what are some of like the problems that you see in Singapore and like what you want to do lah. Yeah, that's for us.
Yeah, so talk about EDB. So EDB will always on the lookout for good talent. Our team is actually broken down into two main practice pillars. So we have product design and we also have service design. So for service designers, actually for us, like the medium of the thing that you're designing is often a little bit more conceptual, more abstract. So I think it's for people who really love wicked problems. And then I think for product design, I think a lot of it is synonymous with digital product, but I think increasingly we're also moving into the domain of helping to design policies. So what that really means for designers who maybe not so familiar with the government landscape is that actually sometimes you need to think about the context of the organization that you're working in and how it ought to be. So if we're looking at policy design, so like, do you have an interest or can you like step up and do a lot of reading to understand the context of tax policies or financial grants? Right. And can you kind of like read up enough so that you can spar with your policy owners or your business stakeholder and counterparts to actually defend your design decision, right? Because you don't just defend it from a perspective of, okay, this looks good, this is usable, but actually, can you speak the language that your stakeholders are speaking? Yeah. And I think in EDB, like a trait that we look out for is because as an organization, we manage 40% of Singapore's GDP. And we look after, okay. Charlotte, project my voice. Yeah, and we look after numerous industry lines.
So like when you jump across project to project, the domain that you're talking about also changes quite drastically. One day you could be looking at sustainability, like the next day you could be looking at like business environments and tech policy. And then the third day you're looking at, okay, how do we like foster innovation? So I think the ability and the interest to intellectually read up a lot and very quickly, I think it's something that's a little bit different and unique for EDB. But I think across the board, okay, everyone. Across the board, I think for us, I really agree with what Judy said, that actually my previous mentor really like once told me 70% of designing is communication. So your artifact, the visual artifact is communicating, but the interactions you have with your stakeholders is also communication. So I think for us, one thing that's unique, not unique, but it's I tend to look out for designers that have very strong facilitation skills. And not just only people that facilitate when they have like the sharp in their hand, like I'm here to facilitate a workshop, but also for people who play the role of like looking at how do people have conversations throughout the course of this project. What are some of the missing conversations that this project team is not having that we really ought to be having, so that we can really work in service of the outcomes that we're trying to drive at. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit in short about EDB. And I will hand over the projection and public speaking.
All right. Okay, I think at government digital services, I think we're always hiring, but there are very many teams. So there, depending on the role you're applying for, then the team context and what they're looking for might be a bit different. I think for me as a whole, when it comes to hiring, maybe three things that I think about. The first one is articulation. It's a bit like what Elaine had said or Jing had said. So what is your ability to articulate your idea, the way you thought about it, and how you came to these calls that you made? So that articulation is important, especially when it comes to your ability to influence stakeholders and get them to understand where you're coming from and why this choice matters. If you are able to reframe something insightfully, to be able to say like, we thought it was this way, but it turned out to be that way, and to be able to nutshell it very well. I think these all. The second thing I look for is, I call it bent, but it's kind of like your motivation, because everyone is motivated by different things, and we want to make sure that in this role, it's a good fit with what you're motivated by. So for example, if the role has a lot of stakeholder work and you're not motivated by talking to people and you want to do things by yourself, then that's not a good fit. If the role is very technical and you're a very good technician, then that is a good fit. So your bent, knowing what you enjoy about the design process, what you bring to it and the lens you bring when you're on a team, what is your angle and what do you bring to that team in particular? Then that's the third thing I look for, which is fit. Because for projects, we don't always work alone. Often there are other people on your team. So are you a good fit? Do you complement the other people in the team? And are you able to collectively then bring different perspectives and richness to the work? I think. Can you say again? Yes. Okay, yeah. So articulation, bent, and fit. I think those are things that I look for. Just nice. Thank you. Okay. So when we're looking to hire people, there are a couple of things we look at, right? So we look at the basics, which is core competencies. Like what UX competencies do you have? I'm not very concerned about the competencies only because we can train you for anything. So training is a big part of what we do, and it's easy to do. I believe anybody can be trained for anything. The things that I really look out for are two. One is your growth mindset, and the other one is curiosity. So I often ask people, what do you do for fun on the weekend? So if you tell me that I watch Netflix all day, and then I sleep, and then I wake up, and then I eat, and then I watch Netflix, I'm like, okay, that's not a growth mindset, and you're not curious about the world, you're not curious about products, you're not curious about things, how things work, you're not curious about global warming. You can have curiosity about anything from making buttons into toys to taking apart electronics. I don't mind what it is, but as long as you're doing something and chasing down something that excites you, it shows me your personality. And that leads me to understanding how you work as an individual.
And those are the sort of people, the growth mindset and the curiosity that make very good UX designers. So those are some of the things that you could think about.
All right, thank you all so much. How are we doing? 3 minutes? All right, we got one bonus question we can get into, yeah? But only a couple people can answer. If you could travel back in time to the moment when you were considering a career in public service, what advice would you give your former self? And I'm going to go with Judy because she's been for 10 years, so that's what I'm trying to go back to.
Yeah, I think at the start, I was saying that no regrets for joining. So if I were to go back, right, I would have told myself, why not join earlier? I should have started right after I fresh grad come in. Yeah, and I have to donate to but it was a good experience to have both from like so-called private sector and the government sector. So we can compare because many of our ex-colleagues, they do come in as a fresh grad and then after that say that, oh, I want to go and try the private world. Yeah, but probably 50% of them after trying the private world, right, still come back to public sector. Yeah, so that's the kind of statistics we get. Yeah. So yeah, will be start early. Join too late. I think there's a link right later. Your resume, yeah, immediately after that, please submit.
Okay, I think, because I do the private sector as well, right? So one advice I'll give myself, I guess like don't be too quick to judge. I guess because like growing up, I always tell myself I'll never go to the public sector. Sorry, but yeah, that was who I was as a kid. Because I thought that being in like all the big firms and whatnot was just like fun, right? But I think like one thing that really changed my mindset when I joined the public service is that yes, like everybody's looking for like impact, right? But just what kind of impact you're looking for. So previously, like the work that you do is impactful, yeah, maybe, but it's like helping people. I don't know, to me when I was in a different text, it was like helping the rich get richer. Sadly. But then I think coming to like the public space, it was like you really see like I won't say dirt, but then you see like the real side of like Singaporean life, which you don't get to. I guess we are all like quite privileged, right? I didn't grow up like very poor. I don't have like a soft story or whatsoever. But I think I grew up pretty average Singaporean. But I think you really get to see like how real it is. There is like people who are really rich and affluent, but there's also people that's also like struggling. So I think that that's why I would say that don't be too quick to judge because it's actually quite like more meaningful than what you imagine it to be. And also, I guess also being in OGP is a bit different because we work like pretty agile. So like we try as much as possible to pack ourselves like the best practices and things like that, and we are given a lot of autonomy to drive things. So yeah, I guess that's the feedback or advice I'll give myself.
Maybe close out with that.
All right. So if I talk to myself 9 years ago, I think when you take on problems that are beyond what you know how to handle, then you are really standing on the edge of your learning. And when you navigate with purpose, you will find people who are very like-minded. And these people will become your cohort that help you to leave the impact that you want on the world. Yeah. So I think I would tell myself to not be so afraid and to lean into things that are really feel beyond what I'm able to solve on my own. And to have the confidence that if I see the problem, I can be the one to help address it. And I can find the people and resources around me to make that happen. That said, I will also tell myself that it really is about patience. It's really a long game and it's really about relationships. A bit like what Premika was saying, is you really have to see people where they are and to love that. And I think love says like, I can work with this. Yeah, which is very hard, sometimes when we want speed or when we want achievement, it's very hard to love the challenges or the problems that we see in front of us. Yeah, but love really says that I can work with this, I can work with where you're at, I can work with the way circumstances are, and I have hope that I can make the meaning that I need to make, and I don't need to rush it. Yeah, so I think I would tell myself also that I don't need to feel that sense of pressure to have to tackle it all or to get it all done right off that moment.
And I can just be present with where people are at, where the problem is at, and the change and purpose that I want to see in the world.
Awesome. I had goosebumps. I think I picked a good one to close it out on. So unfortunately, we don't have any more time for Q&A up here on the panel, but everyone will be around after this during the networking session. So if you guys have additional questions that you want to ask them, feel free to go ahead and do that. Maybe we can give everyone a huge round of applause. Say thanks so much. And I'll hand things over to Steph here to close things out. Yeah.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists for the really insightful and honestly quite heartwarming session. Like there was a lot of stuff that was shared straight from the heart. So really thank you for being here today and sharing.
Hello, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm your host for tonight's online Q&A. I'm Christabel, Senior Product Designer at Open Government Products. Okay, I think we can go through, maybe before we start the questions, I would like to introduce the rest of the panel. With us today, we have Chok Teck Lee, Senior Manager HR at CPF Board. Maybe Chok Teck, you might want to introduce yourself, and then let's introduce the rest of the participants one by one as well.
Video. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I think there's some issue with my video.
Okay.
So, I'm Teck Lee from HR CPF Board.
Yeah, maybe you want to give a bit of a explanation, like what CPF is looking to do for hiring.
Sorry, I think there's some issue with my because I'm working from home.
Okay, it's okay.
Now.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to proceed to the next
No worries.
panelist. Yeah.
Okay, so today with us we have Marcus, who is in charge of recruitment for Digital and Intelligence Service in SAF, DIS. We also have Desmond Teo, who is the Assistant Director, who's doing recruitment for GovTech across the board. And basically, they're also looking to hire to expand their design team. So maybe Desmond and Marcus, we could hear from you for an introduction. I think Desmond can start first.
Thank you so much. But Christopher, do you mind give us the access to video?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Hey, no worries, no worries.
Okay.
Let me try that again.
Yeah, my colleague Joshua is working on that.
It's fine, it's fine. Right, so I'll keep trying. Yeah, I think I'm online already. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Desmond. I look after all talent attraction and overseas cultivation as well as employer branding for GovTech. GovTech, like other agencies, we're actively hiring. I'm very thankful that OGP has helped us to organize this. And for UX design, definitely we are now actively looking for all roles, from junior UX designer to senior to lead UX designer. So very happy to drop down the link for everyone to look at what are the roles and what does it entail. And happy to answer some questions. I'm trying to answer some in the Q&A already. Hope I answer your question. Yeah, thanks a lot, Christabel.
Yeah, thanks for introducing yourself, Desmond. Shall we hear from Marcus? Tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm working with the SAF, Singapore Armed Forces. So in MINDEF and the SAF, you may have heard of the fourth service, which we recently inaugurated, the Digital and Intelligence Service. And really part of the mandate of the DIS is not only the traditional realms of intelligence, cybersecurity, defense, but really building digital products that really transform the lives of everyone, not just the military people, but even NSS and NS men who are serving with us, and really bringing sort of fourth generation revolution to the SAF. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, Teck Lee, is your mic working now? I think maybe still having some issues there. Okay, so just to maybe talk a little bit about myself and the work that I'm doing. I'm currently working on a data system that aims to help public officers in their workflows to do it more efficiently, like connecting data from FormSG, also allowing them to then like share it with colleagues, whether they are in the same agency or whether it's across agencies. So optimizing their operations. Yeah, I can take the first question. So what is the day-to-day like for a product designer? At OGP, we work quite, I would say we are all quite self-driven in our in the work that we do. So it involves a lot of research, ideation together with the product managers and engineers, and then also working together with potentially policy or the agencies that we are collaborating with, depending on the process, as in depending on where the product is at in terms of its life cycle. I think that depends a lot. But yeah, we do a lot of research with citizens, public officers across the government. What sets a senior product designer apart from a junior? So senior product designers are expected to work quite independently. Usually in our teams, we have about 1 to 2 designers per product. If you're a junior designer, you would be paired with maybe a senior designer, and then they would be helping to review your work and scope out tasks for you. If you're a senior, then you're expected to drive the process more and decide what needs to be designed. Yeah. Any advice for someone who was in the design field but have moved to another for a few years and is looking to return? I would say when we hire designers, we heavily look at their portfolios, so case studies of the work that they have done, as to if you perhaps may have left for a while and you're looking to return, you could potentially just try having a couple of self-driven projects in your like online website or a portfolio that you put together of like slides. And I think we have hired, for example, like interns or junior designers as well that don't have any prior work experience, but have shown initiative in pro bono projects that they have started on their own. Yeah. Yeah, Desmond, I see that you are typing an answer. Would you like to share as well?
Sharp eyes, thanks. Okay, so let me go to the answer. I think I already answered, but let me just verbalize it. Perhaps I can just articulate a little bit more. So I think someone asked about any advice for someone who was in the design field but have moved to another, I think it's another field for a couple of years and looking out for return. So I say certainly, right? Past experience, first of all, shapes the way how we see the world around us. This cannot be replaced. Nothing is wasted. Okay. So the point here is when you return, try to highlight how design is it, how do you see design differently? How do you see design able to solve real world problems? Because to talk about things at a conceptual level is easy. To see how that's applicable and being applied to solving some real world problems is tough. Okay. So if you are able to go to the level, it explains system thinking. If you know what it means, system thinking, seeing things holistically, at the same time, able to nail down to details. And that's also quite tough. And these are the things, no secret, if you are able to possess and also to articulate by seeing how you can solve problems, naturally, you don't have to worry.
Yeah. I really agree with that. I think that the experience that you have in your time away from design should be valuable as well. If you can bring that into your unique value as a designer and the perspective that it has brought you, I think maybe it could even give you an edge. Okay, next question. Is the government salary pegged to experience or last drawn? If you are a mid-career switcher, how do they evaluate how much salary and what level you are at? Do they consider the transferable skills you can bring from your previous career? So I think definitely your past experience is heavily considered, in fact, more so than your last drawn salary. And I'm speaking to OGP in particular. I'm not sure how it's like for maybe Desmond and Marcus, as well as Take Lee, you can share for your organizations. But for us, we consider, I would say, the experience that the person has over their last drawn, but we do take it into consideration as well. I think we have standard salary bands for each position. So that means everyone in OGP who is of this particular level is earning that particular salary, and we assess it according to the technical assessment during the interview. But if we find that after joining, you show that you are performing above your level, very quickly we promote you and make sure that you're paid fairly. Yeah. Desmond and Marcus, what's it like?
Since I just type and reply, okay, sorry, just
Oh, no worries.
sorry. Okay, first of all, I can tell you we don't ask for pay slips anymore. And that speaks volume, right? If you look at last drawn, then you have to look at pay slip, right? So we have to trust you what you declare. But more importantly, why we do that is because we focus heavily on what are some of the competencies you bring on board. And we trust our own assessors, people like Premika, just now you heard them. We trust them to be able to assess what is good, what is better. From there, then we look at the role, the scope, the responsibility that you have, and then people are compensated accordingly to that. Yeah, Marcus, sorry, I stole the time.
No. Yeah, I'll just share very quickly as well. Similarly, how we actually evaluate a pay schema is related to experience, not so much last drawn salary as well. So your relevant experience in prior roles would count towards being able to qualify for a higher job. Yeah, also based on how well you interview with the people who you will be working with. So just a super quick sharing, how it works with us is very similar to other agencies, whereby you will come and interview for a particular entity. In our case, we do have a digital ops tech center within the digital intelligence service, who will eventually be looking out for UI UX designers. And if you interview well, we'll place you on the according salary of the seniority of the position.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, what are the systems you have in place at your organizations that ensure that you are, number one, creating inclusive products, and number two, an inclusive environment for your designers? Okay. So speaking for OGP, we have a culture of really a research and problem solving driven culture. So rather than creating products for that nobody's going to use, we are looking at, okay, what are the problems? How can we solve them? And then who are the users that are going to use them? Making sure that we are talking to the right people to completely observe how they use it, how they behave, and then we design it accordingly. I think we are looking more towards accessibility, even though I would say there is still a lot that we can improve on, especially for perhaps special needs individuals. But I think especially for citizen-facing products, we do more of those explorations. So we talk to even senior folks who sometimes are not so tech savvy. Yeah, we'll go down to the community centers, let them test our products, observe how they're using it. I think we have some designers who are particularly more very focused on more accessibility research, and we're looking to build those things into our design system as well. As for I would say creating an inclusive culture, we are very much I would say we encourage a culture of open feedback. So not just every year, but regularly, every month, we are always asking for feedback. And then if there are issues that are highlighted, or let's say people feel certain things are not fair or whatever, then the COP team looks at it and reviews it and acts quite fast on it as well. Yeah. Yeah. Marcus, maybe you want to share? Oh, sorry, I think you are muted.
Oh yes, sorry. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how can we make our place more inclusive for designers? How can we make products more inclusive for our users? First of all, I just want to also mention that in the DIS, we are sort of like growing in this area. As a ops like user, I myself am an intelligence analyst. I've been working with like engineers to bring products to people who use them to sort of like safeguard the security of our nation. And traditionally, we haven't really had product designers, dedicated product designers working with us. It's really been a team between really the engineers and users like me who actually work together to create things that suit our people. So what we currently do are things like lots of like user interviews, very high access to the people who actually use our products. And that is where we sort of get things going. And I guess in terms of creating a sort of inclusive environment for our product designers, or in our case, our existing pools of engineers and ops users, we do have, as a large entity, we do actually have lots of different support for various things like mental wellness, feedback systems, and we also do encourage all of our entities to organize unit level cohesion events, getting them to know each other as well. So we do have things from both the top down at the organization level as well as ground up efforts. Yeah.
Yeah. Desmond, do you want to share?
Yeah, of course. So actually two things. One is all designers, they are highly encouraged. In fact, sometimes we push them a bit for them to talk to actual people who are the users. That means citizens, even government officials, from different agencies, because the products are for them. I recall there was a room that they set up, and they get a mother, who's pregnant person, right? It's gonna give birth very soon, and ask her what she needs and how the Life SG can be better. So that was how the app function came about. So that's one. Second is empathy, right? So what we have been advocating very much across the organization is this idea of, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So very much like what Xian and also Premika has shared in terms of patience. It's very difficult, trust me. People like me with no patience is very difficult. When you look at a problem, you must understand how much people are feeling the pain instead of you feeling the pain. Because if I feel the pain, it's easy. It's easy to solve it because I just need to solve my own problem. But if I'm a UX designer trying to solve other people's problem, you need to know their pain. So empathy is key. This is something that GovTech has been advocating very much into even the DNA and core values.
Yeah, great to hear from you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to take the next question. For OGP, would there be any difference in applying through the From Shared and OGP internal referral? Honestly, I don't believe there is much of a difference, because ultimately we still heavily look at technical assessment as well as culture fit. So even if you were to apply through a referral, it still goes through that very fair process, and we look at all candidates quite equally. Yeah. Okay. The next one might be a sensitive question, but they've mentioned the difference between private and public sectors quite often. How will you compare the yearly appraisal process as well as potential salary ceiling? So for OGP, we benchmark our salaries according to the, I would say like the tech industry. Because we're trying to hire top talent, we benchmark against the top tech companies. Yeah, and I would say that the yearly appraisal process, I'm not sure if it differs across government, I assume so, but for us it's heavily focused on impact. So impact in the work that you deliver, in the products that you build, and in a sense, those are our KPIs compared to let's say something more profit driven, yeah, rather than how much money are we making for the companies, how many people have we helped, how much like time have we saved for public officers, or how much money have we saved, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Okay, how does UI plan will be implemented to a real product? Will this be discussed with implementation team before making a Figma? Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe Desmond and Marcus, you can take it after. But for OGP, we are the implementation team. So the product team is the one that is deciding what gets implemented, and we have full ownership over what gets built. So as a designer, together with the product managers and engineers, we will, based off the research findings, then ideate around what we think is the best solution and can be implemented maybe in a realistic time frame, launch that out to users, test it, and then continue making refinements. So rather than it being like a one-off, we build it and then we hand it off, it's a continuous improvement and a continuous, I would say, trying to figure out how can we make our products better, what are the problems out there that we haven't solved yet that are worth our time solving, and then focusing on those things. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll share a bit as well. In the past, software apps that I've had the privilege of working on, we've also done very similar things, you know, after our user research, really mapping out what functions, what features they need to really optimize their workflow. Generally, the UI team and the UI team, you know, works really concurrently with the system design, the engineers. The UI team will come up with the relevant mockups. We even test them with the users before we go into full-fledged development. And even after the product comes out, generally comes out in phases. So there'll be lots of testing along the way. Of course, there's one thing that we want to like improve on within the SCF as well, which is basically how fast, I guess, we deliver on the products to the end users. That really increase the speed both for our engineers and hopefully our future product designers as well, to get feedback from the users and improve the way they work.
Yeah, okay, I would like to also introduce Premika, who is joining us. She was on the panel earlier, so she's going to join our online Q&A session. Yeah, Premika, maybe you want to also take the question about, okay, so the current question that we're answering is how UI gets implemented into a real product. Maybe you can share about that process, like what it's like at MOM.
How does UI get implemented into a real product? Is this a trick question? Okay, so basically what happens is that we do a lot of usability testing. So let me start from the beginning. So we do the discovery and research, and then we come up with the conceptual designs, and then we do build wireframes. After you build the wireframes, we do a lot of usability testing. This usability testing with real users gives us a lot of feedback on a lot of things, including the UI. So the UI, if it works, people don't have very many issues with that. And if they keep consistently bumping heads against a particular part of the UI, then we try and find out, okay, what's the problem and how do we change it? So it's iterative, and that's how the UI actually gets built out into the system. And that's how the best practice UI gets built into the system.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go to the next question now. So for OGP senior design roles, how many years of experience are required minimally? Okay, we don't have an actual requirement on the years of experience, but we do find that senior roles are looking at about maybe 6 to 8 years of experience. Yeah. What are some things you look out for when viewing a job applicant's portfolio and case studies? Premika, maybe do you want to share?
Okay, what do we look for when we look at portfolios and case studies? So usually the portfolio and case study I'd look at during the interview, but if suppose there are a lot of applicants and you have to look at portfolios, I look at clarity of thought and structure. So I'm like, does the person understand the problem that they're solving for, and have they laid out the path for me to understand how the problem got solved and then what the solution was? Now, does the solution have to be a beautiful, perfect solution? No. I'm more interested in the journey. Like, what did you think of? What was the problem? What did you do along the way? What was the failure that you had? What did you learn from it? How much research did you do? How much did you involve other people? Or what do the stakeholders have to say? So I look for all that in the portfolio.
Yeah, so we also look a lot at because at OGP, our designers are expected to work end to end. So we do research, UI, UX. So we look for competence in all of the three, as well as, like Premika said, a very strong problem-solving mindset. Yeah. Okay, Desmond, do you want to share?
Yeah, and also sometimes it's always good to be very curious. I think just how the panel has shared something. For example, UX engineer. How can a UX designer slowly move towards that? It may not have happened for you, but have you thought about it? Have you thought about having some basic skill set as a front-end engineer so that you can understand, not do the work, of course, I mean, you could, but is to understand how do you work better with your stakeholders. So you see, the essence here is you think ahead and you want to work well with others, finding some common ground. If you can have those kind of experience being narrated in your CV or during interview, you can actually share that. I think that would be great. Portfolio is a portfolio. CV is a CV. Experience and thought process is unique. So I think it's good to articulate those things, whether in writing or in person.
Okay. The next question is, what are the must-haves in the CV that will distinct a good versus not so good candidate? I was thinking, Marcus, maybe you could take this one since you're heading the recruitment for SAF.
Right. So, as I mentioned, actually, we have not actually hired any product engineers or designers like currently. So I must say that we'll be looking at all CVs with keen interest. Like what I think is that as we are embarking on this journey and we want to hire someone, we really want to find out what value perhaps you have provided to the previous teams that you have been in. Like, how did you help I suppose the users and the engineers see achieve better outcomes, and how do you through your design help them to bridge the gap with the users? That's what I would imagine, because this is something that we currently are doing in our teams with our front-end engineers, but we really want to bring to the next level, hopefully, I guess, with product designers.
Maybe I can take this question as well, because I am quite heavily involved in hiring and I conduct quite a lot of the interviews myself. So I would say we look for relevant experience in product design specifically, because we are looking to hire experienced candidates at the moment, rather than fresh graduates. We look for experience in I would say end-to-end product design. Yeah. So like strong experience in research, UI and UX. Okay. How many projects in a portfolio would be a good number for a fresh graduate or someone who is transiting from a completely different field? I would say at least 2 to 3 would be good. More than that, sometimes, the whoever screening doesn't look through all of them. But if you have 2 to 3 very strong ones, at least you know that whatever they're taking a look at, it's your best work. Yeah. Whereas if you have just one, then they're assessing you only on that one that they see. Yeah. Okay. Okay, next question is, I am a UX UI student at General Assembly. I'm worried that my portfolio might not be as attractive as those with uni degrees. Any advice? I will be graduating next week and my portfolio is not fully ready as yet. Can I still apply without my portfolio now, or will it put me at a disadvantage? So to tell you very honestly, it will put you at a disadvantage because you need a portfolio in order for someone to assess your skills. Like, that's what they're looking at. especially when it comes to product design applications, right? Like rather than looking so much at your experience, which in this case works out well for you because they're looking at your portfolio rather than your experience. I would say spend the time, work on your portfolio, and when you feel that you are ready, then apply. Just to maybe share a little bit about myself as well. I used to be a student at General Assembly. I was in the cohort 6 years ago. Yeah, I was a comm student. So I have a bachelor in communications, which yes, teaches a bit about design, but it's not entirely like focused on design. So in that sense, really on the job training and showing aptitude for the role, I think is way more important than education. Yeah. How many portfolio pieces would you recommend to show during the interview? Yeah, as mentioned about, okay, for us, during the interview, we take usually two case studies that the applicant will present. Maybe Desmond, would you like to share a bit about your hiring process as well?
I think I shared something similar in another Q&A question that I've answered, but just to repeat, and Premika, please feel free to fill in the blank. So generally 2 rounds, and these 2 rounds can be combined into one sometimes. So the first, we look at your tech competency, in this case, UX design. And I think to answer the question directly, my take is the best portfolio that you can present, go first, then have one more on standby. So I think that's the key preparation you need to make. So that's for the first. The second interview, if that happens, then it will really be about how do you fit well with the team. Sometimes it's not about one-to-one, and we believe hiring and interviewing people as a group. In GovTech, this is quite a culture. So even after interview, we may have informal chats. It's not interview, but for people to know their team well, because people need to feel a lot for the products that they are part of before they want to put their time into the employment. Employment is just employment. It's about the time spent. So people need to be comfortable also. Premika, did I miss out anything that you would like to add? Or maybe because I'm from HR, I don't hire as much myself, right, in terms of direct hiring to UX.
No, I think that's pretty much how it works. I just want to address this question of portfolios because I feel a lot of people say, what should I put in my portfolio? How many projects do I need? What am I going to do? Okay, so we need to think about what is the purpose of your portfolio. So the purpose of the portfolio basically is for the people interviewing you to understand what is the depth of your competency. Like how much do you know? How much do you understand? What are you like as a person? What is your thinking process? How curious are you about problems? So don't worry, I wouldn't worry about do I need to show 2, do I need to show 3, do I need to show 5. The point is that whatever you show, is it a good reflection of the kind of designer you are? So we usually say 2 only because one project, they're like, okay, so this person seems to be doing pretty well. And then the second one kind of seals the deal. You're like, okay, now this person has shown me depth and competency, even if you're a junior designer. Like I know that you understand the basics from the structure of your portfolio, from the visual design, from the comments that you make about the interaction design or the problems that you face. I understand you. So you have to get your head around what is the purpose of the portfolio. Once you understand that, you won't worry about how many pieces you have in your portfolio. And then, yeah, the rest was the same. Like you do have a second interview, sometimes you have a team chemistry check just to see if everybody gets along.
Yeah, I would say beyond also, having, because some portfolios that I see is just literally the UI spec is there, but there's no explanation as to the thought process that you had as to why you designed it this way. So having, like very clear detail on what you were trying to solve, what was your approach, what were the steps that you took and the trade-offs that you considered that led to this end product, I think is really important. Yeah. Okay, next question. I am in a role that is part management and part IC. Would you suggest to include the management side of work in my portfolio? How can I show it? Premika, I think you would be very well placed to answer this question. As a design manager yourself.
Okay, so today's context, people don't do just one thing. So if you're an individual contributor as well as you have other skills, showcase them, because that's what people look for, right? So when I look at people, I don't want somebody who's just an interaction designer or just a really good visual designer. I'm looking for an all-rounded person. So if you have other skills which complement the way that you behave with teams, how you manage stakeholders, how you can facilitate sessions, it's always a plus point. So if there's anything that you have which complements you as a person, always showcase it.
Yeah, I really agree with that also, because as a designer, it's not just about pushing pixels out. Such a big part of your work is about convincing others, it's about influencing your teams, about ensuring that people are working well together. So I think having that experience actually is very valuable to you as an individual. Yeah. Okay. We'll take two last questions and then close up by 8:45. So, okay, let me see. I think I can maybe talk about collaboration across multiple teams. So Premika was also just mentioning to me that this is something that GovTech is trying to focus on more now. Maybe would you like to share the current efforts?
So very broadly, on a broad level, right, we build a lot of products and they're done by different, and GovTech is a very large organization, and we do a lot of very good work. So currently what we're trying to do is trying to get, so we do something called a product bazaar, which is basically showcasing across all the, what we call tribes, showcasing all the products that we've built so that people have visibility on all the products that are being rolled out and worked upon. And then designers can have, not only designers, everyone who works in the team can have conversations about, okay, is there any correlation between the products? How can we get this product to work with that product? What is the linkage? How can we make it stronger? How can we build bigger, better, stronger products? Yeah.
I think I can also tell you very honestly that OGP as of now, today, we haven't had the most consistency across products. If you look at the products that we have, I think we focus a lot more on building things fast and getting them out there to solve problems as quickly as we can. But right now, we see our products getting more mature, and I think among all of us, we are starting to have more fluid conversations between teams on how we can integrate our products together, how we can maybe work together to minimize let's say two teams building something similar, solving roughly the same problem. Can we actually build this together so that we can save our effort? Also, we now have a shared design system that we are building. So all the, basically, we are creating base components that are able to be very easily plug and play into different products. So that also helps with creating a consistent look and feel. And across the teams, then when designers create new components, they're also fed back into the master design system. Okay, one last question. Do designers contribute to the roadmap planning process? And I think this is a very good question. At OGP particularly, we drive the roadmap planning process. So it's not about an agency from top down or a minister saying, okay, build this thing, I think it will be good, do it this way. It is about us conducting research to find out what people actually need, and then coming up with the product strategy together with our team to define what the design should look like. So that usually can be me maybe drawing some sketches and just aligning everybody on the core idea first, and then fleshing that out in higher fidelities. Then we do like live prototyping that the engineers will build, like working prototypes, and we'll test it and then iterate it from there. Yeah. Okay. I think to close, let's hear from the rest of the panel. Yeah. Would you like to add on anything to what we've shared today?
Maybe I'll throw in something before Desmond. Yeah, just right on the last question about the roadmap. In the SAF, what we're really doing is creating products that are quite specific as well to our specific sort of like military use cases. And really, I think designers in the SAF will have sort of a unique position whereby we are really collaborating both with the military users in that sense who really understand things that what really impacts them. And so the discovery process might be a little bit different from what we heard at OGP, but nevertheless, I guess what we want to do and what we envisage going forward is creating a sort of an immersive environment whereby new designers coming in with us can really, especially if you're joining as one of our uniform personnel, whereby designers coming in with us can really get immersed and really build up a specific domain knowledge and then bring your skill sets to use in our organization. And then I guess, yeah, in general, we would be very happy in DIS to really hear from people who are interested in us and making a difference to the outcomes of our servicemen as well as all the NSF and NSmen who, yeah, serve Singapore.
So I guess I go next. Okay. So as Christopher, you're asking this question. I recall a conversation I had last week with our Smart Nation office colleague. Today and these few weeks, everyone have been seeing different agencies calling out to the public and say, hey, please join the public service. This is a nice space. And no doubt, the meaning are different across all the different agencies, but the beliefs is the same, right? It's for public good. So this is something I want to really call out, please consider all the agencies. You have a lot of flavor. You have GovTech, you have OGP, you have DIS, you have so many. The point is, how can we come to a stage, as I discussed with our colleagues from Smart Nation Office, they are working on it. How can we create a one career across government agencies for tech? So you just start off with one. Put it this way, you start off with one, after that you go elsewhere, and you come back, and you go there, and you come back. So the whole key is what kind of problem interests you, right? Ultimately, it's not which agency anymore, because we are all public servant. I think the key is what is for the public good. So if we can focus on that, everything will take care of itself. So that's just the last thing I want to share. Premika?
Yeah, +1 to both of you. Agreed.
Yeah, thanks so much for attending today. Okay, we actually have 3 more minutes, so I will take one final question. Okay, let's see. Okay, someone asked if it's possible to share an example of a past project timeline to understand the pace of work and how much time and resources is allocated to each part of the process. So when it comes to time crunches, what do your teams do to plan and prioritize accordingly? So I think I was the designer on the COVID vaccination appointment system. Back then, we launched the pilot in 2 weeks from when I first started designing it. So that was a example of maybe a high time crunch, super emergency project. It is not the usual process. So in that case, we just had to get something working so that we could pilot it to vaccinate the medical workers as quickly as possible before rolling it out to everyone. In terms of design, it was very fluid in that I would do research together with the engineers and the product managers. So rather than getting business requirements first and then coming out with the design and then checking if it's implementable in tech, we were doing it all at the same time. So we all go down, talk to the users together, to the doctors, to the policy people, to everyone. And then literally it's like sketching ideas out together. And then sometimes it's even, rather than doing it in Figma and then, it going to engineering, it may happen simultaneously. Like I'm literally designing at the same time as the engineers are coding. And then if we don't have time to do it in Figma, like we just discuss and implement it straight on front end. Yeah. But that is 2 weeks is really not the usual norm. Yeah. Yeah. Premika, how long do projects usually take to release at MOM or GovTech?
Oh, wow. No, so we have very large stable systems. So our releases are every maybe 8 months, 6 to 8 months. So it's, yeah, it's not fast.
The team that I'm in currently, we do releases every week. Yeah, but it's really that we kind of scope it down into very bite-sized chunks that can be implemented quickly. And then the next week we are working to solve another problem. Yeah, but it's like very incremental, small fixes. Okay. I think we can end here for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to take your questions. For the rest of them, so sorry that we couldn't get through everything, but we are very happy to we hear from you as well. Feel free to write in to us and then we can take your questions privately. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Goodbye.